right, we made it.
We're here.
We made it. Professor Rene Navarro.
Yikes.
Black Belt extraordinaire.
Long time coming. I mean, not long time coming, but a long process.
Started in Tijuana.
Right, yeah. I started such a long time ago. Well, I mean, not that long ago, but I mean, definitely, it's been a while. I was actually thinking about that because I started in TJ before I met Joey, and there's like a Facebook picture of us in like 2008 or 2009. So I must have been like 24 or 25 when I started training in TJ. You went to the new Entram gym, right? You went to the
Yes.
So the old one was just a block over, but it was pretty similar. It was actually not that similar. It was really small, but it slowly like grew. Like it was like from tiny second floor, and then to just like expanded second floor to expanded first floor and second floor, and then But that's definitely where I started training. And then
What year was that?
That's a good question. I don't know, but I was like 24 or 25, and I'm 37, so. Ooh, wow. So whatever, 13. So like 2010. No.
12, 13 years.
Yeah, I guess it was like 2000. It must have been 2008. I think it was like 2008, which sounds crazy, but I guess that's what it is. 2007, 2008. But
wow.
Yeah, I got into like a little bit of kickboxing, and then I took a few jiu-jitsu classes, and that's what I got really into. Like I really liked it. And that's because that's what Raúl was like really, really into, and like he was so passionate about it that like I feel like we definitely picked up his passion for it. So,
and here we are all these years later. This last year, he trained the first Mexican-born UFC champion with Brandon Moreno.
Yeah.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah, and on that recent card, there was 4 people from the gym.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't our night on the card, but overall, like in the last 2 or 3 years, that gym's like skyrocketed in terms of like talent coming in from like Ecuador and Puerto Rico and all kinds of Central American countries and stuff, just like
Latin America.
Yeah, Latin America.
All over Latin America.
People. Yeah.
Argentina, Ecuador, Colombia, everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And the staffing is also like really, really good now. When I was there, I can definitely tell you like the physique where it was different. I mean, I know that overall in the game it's changed, the whole strength and conditioning thing, but they have a strength and conditioning guy there now.
They're a professional team.
It's definitely definitely next level.
I mean, because it's funny, right? How just the roads cross, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
exactly.
I took Sururu there.
Right.
Out of all the places, I'm like, TJ, he's gonna be in TJ for 2 weeks. Where do I go? You know, get a hold of Dean Lister. Dean Lister's like, go get with Raúl.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, it's Raúl.
Right.
Antram's gym.
Right.
And Suru ends up staying there 2 weeks. I get to really get to know more of the guys and see what he's doing. And you're like, wow. Pro team, jiu-jitsu, and just the great work he's doing in the community for a lot of years.
Raúl is a Dean Lister Black Belt. Like Raúl was like one of the very first generations. Like people think of Dean Lister as like a first generation guy. So just imagine a Dean Lister student in Mexico. But I mean, you also have to take into account Mexico is also way ahead of the game in terms of the rest of Mexico from like a Mexican perspective, where we're really ahead of the game because there's always been fight cards because of San Diego. But and
Raúl's also an American citizen, right?
So is he?
He is, yeah.
I know he can cross. He's always been able to cross regularly, but I've never been aware of his citizenship situation. So he's a Dean Lister.
He's proud. He's proud of Tijuana. He's proud of.
Oh yeah. He's also a judo black belt too.
Right.
Yeah, I
was blown away. I was blown away. I'm like, really?
Yeah. So he has a cool
the next floor.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing like what's that event he does? UCWC.
Ultimate Warrior Challenge. UWC. It's on UFC Fight Pass now. So it's so crazy.
In the parking lot on the ground level.
Yeah,
they were organizing one of the weekends.
They're having another event this week, so it's Fight Week again. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this week's is going to be in Jai, JAI space ALAI. It's like a huge. Wow. I don't know if you saw that building. It's nearby. If you just Google it, it's amazing. Like the architecture, where they play that crazy sport where like your hands like cupped in that thing and you throw the ball.
Oh
yeah. So they're gonna have a fight there. It's gonna be pretty interesting. But like they do all like the press conference and all that stuff. They're gonna do it on site.
It's gonna be legit.
So yeah, it's really wild. But it's cool to see like how far it's gone. But with Brandon, like it's cool because I mean I remember when I started training there, I was like in my 23, 24 years old, and I met him.
So how did you? Let's go back. So how did you start jiu-jitsu?
How did I end up there?
Just how did you start training jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. It's there. It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned this because I recently wrote about it in this magazine. My buddy Kiyoshi puts out this magazine called Drunken Master, where he does like a lot of like MMA art. Like he's interviewed like Josh Barnett and that kind of stuff. He's a black belt in judo. Kiyoshi Nakazawa. Oh wow, wonderful guy. And he actually had me write about it. Yeah, it's like he does comic. He does a really cool one called Wonton Not Now. Anyway, and the story's in there. But long story short, like I got jumped in TJ like on 6th Street. Yeah, and it was like pretty bad. Like that's like I got like this crazy scar and like the over the teeth, like over the nose and the lip, like all that's like one.
Wow. Oh wow, that's
all, and like serious. Over the cheek. That's all one incident. That's like a one thing. And so,
do you remember what happened? Like,
yeah, I definitely remember what happened. It was like this. It was like the silliest thing. I used to look a lot different. Like I had really long hair and I was like really petite. And I guess like petite. Yeah, I was definitely like I was like a petite dude. And it was all on Valentine's Day, and it was me, my wife, and my buddy's girlfriend dancing, and he'd gone to get some more drinks or something like that. And long story short, these guys just like kind of jumped me like from behind, like and just like it all happened so quick. Like someone kicked me from behind, and when I turned around, like they like kind of like in their rush to like hit me, like we all fell down, and as I was getting up, someone broke a bottle in my face. It was like
broke a bottle.
Yeah, it was like a 6 second thing. It wasn't like a lot going on, but because of that, I had to get like the surgery, you know, like the reconstructive surgery. And it's funny how we were just talking about things being round circle. I had to be in quarantine. They were like, no, you cannot leave your house for X amount of weeks because dust could get in the wound, or you know, if it hits sunlight, it's gonna get a sunburn, and it'll literally like leave it more scarred. Like you have to stay out of the sunlight for 2 weeks so your scars, you know, which in their defense, they took a lot of care to, you know, reconstruct my face. They don't want it getting like any infection could fuck up the whole thing. But me being me, I was like 8-9 days into it. I was just like, dude, I cannot be here anymore. Like I cannot be here anymore. And I just got like a I don't know what you call it, but I was like, I'm out of here. And I got on my motorcycle. I like jimmied I had to like take out all the padding from my motorcycle, because you know, I had like the full face motorcycle, like we're like, hey, like the padding that goes over your face. I had to like take it out just so I could put my motorcycle on my face.
Oh my god, you couldn't sit still, huh?
And I rode my motorcycle around TJ for like 20 minutes, and then I went and I got a tattoo of like a sugar skull, which like signifies a lot for me. And at that place, they had a flyer, old school, literal, like a flyer. You remember those? Paper fly.
Yeah.
And it was for Anthem Gym, and I was like, dude, this is fucking cool. Like, this is fucking cool. Like, I'd seen like on TV a UFC fight.
Good thing you didn't listen to the doctors, huh?
Yeah. And all goes from there. From that place, I had that flyer on my fridge for like a month, and I would look at it every day. I'm like, I'm gonna go. And like I would drive by and look at it, but I wouldn't go. And then one day I went. And I remember I rode my motorcycle in there, and Raúl was teaching kickboxing, and I asked him like to look at my face. I'm like, can I do this? Like, is it okay? Like, if I take, like, can I? Is it okay if I participate? And he's like, yeah, you're not gonna be sparring your first day. Like, it's fine. Like, da 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 da. And then like from there, like, so yeah.
You never stopped.
Yeah, basically. That was before where they were even using. We didn't even have gis. It was all no gi. Like, it was all like. Our jiu-jitsu at the time was very like, you know, he's a Dean Lister black belt, like leg locks, knee bars, heel hooks,
and also too, it's a financial thing too, right? People have to buy kimonos and gis.
Yeah. Back in the day, it was like, if you had like the $10 tap out t-shirt, you were like, this guy's committed.
Legit.
You know what I mean? Yeah, this was before like the $100 rash guards and all that. Yeah, it's a different thing. But yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, the t-shirts are coming back. I'm glad to see the t-shirts are doing a comeback. But yeah, that's how I started. And then it's crazy to think, though. I've been out here in LA almost 10 years. In September of this year, it's going to be 10 years of me doing jiu-jitsu in LA. So like I've been here for a while. Like I've been with you like since blue belt. I was a blue belt when I showed up here.
I met you at the Jiu-Jitsu World League
in Vegas.
Yeah. And who was I with? I was with Josiah. I was with was Joey there, Professor Joey?
It was all the first generation.
You knew Professor Joey.
Yeah, it was the first generation, or I should say the last generation of SoCal MMA guys that were the carryovers that came.
Right, I was with Joey the SoCal came. MMA guys. Mm-hmm. And Renee. And we hung out that weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm always super proud to like say like I was the last guy to come over with like the Joey people, and I'm the last guy still here. Like everyone just kind of like, I mean, nothing but love to those guys, but you know, everyone
things happen, right?
Things happen.
Move away.
People's lives take over. No one's moved away. I'm friends with everyone on Instagram. That's not an excuse.
Nobody what?
No one moved away. I'm like, that's not an excuse, motherfuckers. No, I'm joking. Jose Navas still comes and trains sometimes. But yeah, that's definitely when we met. And those guys, they were so cool. I mean, we were all still friends. And they gave me a ride back from Vegas, and they were singing your praises the whole way back. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go over there. I'm gonna commit someplace, because I was just kind of floating around for a while after Joe Camacho passed away. I just kind of like, I was like, I don't know where I'm gonna go. I don't know what I was gonna do. And I was just kind of like, and I would go to so many gyms. Like, I'm so fortunate to be here in LA where there are so many gyms. And so I was like, once you've trained at 2 or 3 gyms, you know, and like coming from Raúl's gym, and my first professor was like so like technical, passionate, disciplined, humble, all that stuff, like that I was like, that's what I'm looking for. Those are big shoes to fill, you know what I mean? And then when I met Joe Camacho, I'm like, this guy's like that. And then he died. Rest in peace, Joe Camacho. Yeah. And then for a while I was like, you know, I'd go to different places, and I was like, dude, like I'm not looking for a big personality. I'm not looking for this one. And then when I met you, I was like, I like this place. I like this vibe. Like I like the whole. And I when I met you, I didn't know anything about you. Like real talk, I hadn't heard about this place. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I went around, I was like, oh, he's really cool. Like, he's a really nice guy. And then like, I went home, I started looking at him, I'm like, oh, wow, cool. Like, I was like, I didn't know he was like the first American to win worlds and this, da. But like, you know, as soon as you walk in, you see all the medals and da. But I was like, it was really cool, like how it all happened.
It doesn't matter, right? It's like what you feel, how you, your experience,
yeah,
right?
I just feel like our personalities, like, I immediately liked you. That sounds weird, but yeah, I was like, cool dude.
And I felt like that when I met Raúl in Tijuana. Yeah. Like when I went to his gym, when I spent the day with him, super down to earth. Just like, man, what a great environment. From the regular jiu-jitsu class to the pro team, it was all the same like culture. Yeah,
I always tell people the craziest thing to me about Raúl is to have known him for so long and to see so many things in his life change as regarding circumstances. And he's still like the same exact guy, the same exact way. It's funny you mentioned that, because my wife, who's obviously a very big influence in my decision making, she's noted once or twice. She goes, I really like Alberto because he kind of reminds me of Raúl. I'm like, yeah, they have that similar like vibe, like in control, but not needing to be like posting every 20 minutes on Instagram, like, oh, I'm in control. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Raúl like rarely posts on Instagram, like hates interviews, doesn't like pictures. Like, he's almost hiding behind people when he's like doing the walk down in the UFC. Like, he's not one of those, there's so many cornermen that are almost trying to hog the camera, like trying to make it about them. Like, that's the opposite of him. Like, yeah, so
he's fully committed to.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate, and also that he allows me to train with him when I go back to TJ every once in a while. Although more and more when I go back to TJ, I don't train, because like the first few years that I moved out here, I was going out to TJ like literally every weekend.
Remember that you took Professor George there, right?
Yeah,
one time.
Mm-hmm. I was going out like every weekend. Well, the first 6 months that I moved out to LA, my wife stayed back in TJ because she didn't. I didn't have any place to put her. And B, like she didn't have like her residency stuff, so like I had to wait until like I had like a proper place to bring my wife, and then like, yeah, that took a couple of months. So like for a few months, every Friday as soon as I got out of work, because I was working on Skid Row, I would just walk over to Los Angeles Street, what is it, 7th and Los Angeles, all the little buses, the little shuttles that say Tijuana, and get on one of those damn shuttles and take the journey.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How did you end up coming to LA?
I graduated from SDSU, and I just couldn't find, like, it was like after like the economy crashed or whatever.
So you grew up in Tijuana.
I moved to Tijuana. I was born in LA.
Okay,
I moved,
you were born in LA.
We moved around. Like when I was 6 or 7, we moved it to Temecula. Then we moved it to Old Town Temecula. We kind of bounced around. Like we lived in Murrieta and stuff. But when I was,
I used to train there with Dan Henderson.
Nice. In the
Murrieta and Temecula, yeah.
In the 90s, oof, there was nothing there. It was like, yeah, it was very boring. But we moved to Encinitas when I was like 9. And we lived there like 8. I think it was like 8 or 9, probably 9. And we lived there till I was 12. And I really liked Encinitas. Like that place, like really like culturally shaped me a lot. Like I got really into like surfing and skating and like speaking like this, even though I've been gone for so long. And then we moved to TJ when I was like 12, but it's kind of like similar, like San Diego's right there. So like I literally from the age of 12 to 28, I crossed the border every single day, probably except for like, I don't know, a month altogether. Like I crossed the border every day for like school or for work. So I went to private school. I went to uni, and then I got kicked out of uni. I went to a bunch of different high schools in San Diego. I got kicked out of the whole. Anyway, long story short, I went to San Diego City College and San Diego State, and then I moved here when I was 28. Yeah, yeah. Because I didn't graduate from college until I was like 26. I was like working part time and going to school.
What made you move to LA?
I wanted to have a job when I got out of college that was like something like a professional job. And my sister worked for the county. She worked for DCFS. And she told me, you start applying for county jobs. Start applying for county jobs. Department of Child and Family Services.
Okay.
And then I ended up getting a job as a patient resources worker for the Department of Mental Health in 2012. And I moved out to FCC, and I joined an FCCS team, which is a field capable clinical services team on Skid Row. And I was with them for 2 years working on Skid Row.
In LA?
In LA.
Wow.
Yeah, the Skid Row.
How was that?
Interesting.
Yeah,
like a lot. Like it's wild. Like, you know,
I've heard stories.
Oh yeah, there's so many stories. Like, and I was like the first guy there, so I was like rolling up the gate and stuff in the morning, and we were working out of like a clinic like on 6th and San Pedro, but our office was on 4th and San Pedro, and there's also a different one on Maple Street, which is like the main one. And as a patient resources worker, I was like shuttling like the documents back and forth. This is before they transferred to a new, more technologically advanced system. So like in 2013, long story short, I was carrying files back and forth on Skid Row. So I got like mugged like, I don't know, dude, like 3 or 4 times. It was
really?
Fun. Yeah. Just like it's just it's wild, the amount of things, like the things that happen there that you see, just like people like getting assaulted or people assaulting each other, just like nude, it just, you know, everything you can imagine. It's a wild place.
Nudity.
Yeah. And then from there I went to Glendale.
To Glendale.
Yeah. I was eligibility worker for the Department of Public DPSI, Department of Public Social Services. And then that's when and when I was working there, that's when I started to go train with you. I'm like, oh, that's perfect, because I would just, you know, right out of there.
But you lived like...
I lived in Highland Park at the time.
Highland Park, yeah. So it was a trek for you to come and train.
And I didn't have a car back then. But then, well, that's the thing. When Joey came over here, I didn't have a car. So when everyone hopped over, like, I was like, oh, shit, well, I can't go. You know what I mean? Because it's got to be near a metro station, or like I had a bike. I had to like figure it out. But then I finally got my Kia. And that's when I was like, I'm going to Burbank. And I hopped over here.
Man, what a story.
Yeah. You know what else I trained at too? You know that guy that just joined the team, Anton?
Anton, yeah.
Yeah. He trained with this guy named Mike Anchetta.
In Highland Park,
Highland Park, like a block from my house. And I trained with them for like a year and a half.
He was fighting against Antifa, right?
Yeah, he recently. Yeah, it's like a whole weird story. It's like a whole weird story. Like when I went there, like I knew who he was and I'd met him, but it was weird. Like, I don't know, it's a whole weird story. But anyway, but
he was more like MMA based, right?
He wasn't even. They told me like that he was like anyway, and then he finally showed up, and I was like, I don't think he was anyway. Joseph Teodoro, his student, is a really, really, really good black belt, and that's the guy who was like mostly teaching in his absence, and that's who I mostly trained with, and that's who I definitely vouch for that guy's jiu-jitsu, solid jiu-jitsu. But yeah, he's also gone his own way. That guy's a character and a half. But yeah, Mike Anchetta. It's crazy how everything just goes full circle.
Full circle, yeah. Yeah, I met him a few times. He came in here and
oh, really?
Trying to years go by, right? I don't know what year it was or whatever, but he's just kind of looking for gi, for jiu-jitsu, more gi and stuff. Cool. You know, I think years ago, and then I met him one time with Chaz in Lincoln Park.
Oh wow,
Lincoln
cool.
Park, yeah, Lincoln Heights.
Lincoln Heights, okay.
Because he found the space, he was thinking about setting something up.
Okay. And
then Mike, I think, was over there as well.
Yeah, he's very talented. He can definitely he's very good at jiu-jitsu. Yeah, but yeah. So I've trained at a couple of places. I trained at Cabrinas 35 times. Remember that Living Social website where you could I got like my 20 passes, and then another one broke out that was like similar. That had like a 15 pass, and I got another 15 pass. And I was like, I will never pay $200, or I don't know how much they like $250.
How was that? How did you feel the environment was?
It was wonderful, but I was like, you could only take the beginners class, but I was a blue belt, so that was fine with me. You know what I mean? Isaac Doderlin. I hope I didn't murder his name. He was a brown belt at the time, I believe, and it was cool. Like I took classes with him. Same thing, full circle. When I was, he started teaching at
Maracay.
At Brian Gregerson's. Like he was on the schedule for like a month or two. He was like doing some classes there.
Okay.
So yeah, it's cool. I love LA because there's so much jiu-jitsu. It's like, it's insane. Like we're
like in the mecca of martial arts and jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the COVID restrictions, right? But
yeah,
besides that, it was like, this is where it's at.
I feel like we're back.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where LA beat New York. New York fell off. Because it was always like LA Jiu-Jitsu and New York Jiu-Jitsu were like toe to toe and I was like, oh man, like in the last year, like, oh man, New York just fell off, like, because so many academies like closed, so many like teams,
like Marcelo Garcia, like they kind of stopped. Well, I saw Paul Schreiner at the airport, and he was telling me like, they stopped classes, right? And then Henzo, they were, you know, I think underground, whatever they had to do, right? But still, it was like everything fell off in New York because of all the restrictions.
And John Donaher left.
Yeah, then he left.
That was a bummer. Even I followed that team on Instagram. Like, oh man, but whatever.
Yeah,
LA wins again.
East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, it's definitely an honor to be invited. I really like radio, and I'm really into like recorded content. So like they say, what is it? Long time listener, first time caller.
And so you know, you got your black belt this last year, like
November,
November 2021, right?
Yeah.
And you know, like a lot of years, right? A lot of journey.
I'm ready to compete. I'm gonna do it this year for sure. Like I like, even before I got a black belt, I was very specific with myself about being like you see those places like black belt is the goal. I'm like, black belt was the goal at blue belt.
You gotta compete.
But now I'm like, I want to be a good black belt. I don't want to compete. Like I don't want to just be a black belt. Because once it becomes an obtainable goal, you're like, oh man, like I want a new goal. You know what I mean? So I definitely want to see how well I do.
The journey never stops, right? If you do it right.
Because of COVID, I wasn't able to compete at brown belt. I competed one time, and I got bronze. So I was like, oh man, that definitely looked like a sour taste in my mouth. I'm like, man, I did so well like at every belt, and then like a brown belt, just like only be able to do one and get bronze. Like, like I can't change that. You know what I mean? Like, fuck. Like no matter what I do, like that's my brown belt record.
Yeah. And then, but you know, I was gonna ask you, like, what did it mean for you to, you know, you're getting close to your brown belt? What did it mean for you to get your black belt? What, you know, before when you got it on the day?
For me, it was a really big personal goal, especially having moved out here, because I realized like.
And it's a big sacrifice. Right? You're taking time every single day.
Yeah.
How do you driving here from Highland Park, your wife, like, you know, it's a lot of, you know,
I'm in East LA now, which is even farther.
East LA.
But one thing I've discovered about jiu-jitsu is how many guys are as good as me and could be black belts, but it's just like, you have to be willing to commit, and you have to like check your own ego and be like, no. This is a team. There's staff on site. There's no complaining. There's no like, oh, like if you just show up consistently, like that's what I really like about this place. It's fair. Like there's no one gets a pass and no one gets held up because of a grudge. Like
everybody's the same.
So for me, it meant a lot to be able to have committed at a place for such a long time, and to be able to like have made it, because we have so many black belts here, and so many of them, I admire them outside of the gym on a personal level, because like I feel like they've been able to like carry being a black belt into other aspects of their life, which not everyone is able to do. And not to compare yourself to anyone, but I feel like that's one thing that's frustrated me about being in LA for 10 years, is how many guys are good grapplers, that end up not getting a black belt and not doing that well in life just because they're not down to like commit to a specific job. Like the things that you do here, like commit to doing something you don't want to do just because you know you have to do it to get better at it. Making sure you're on time, making sure your nails are trimmed, your mustache is clean, your gi is clean, like those things, like you take that through your life and they will help you. Like it's wild. You see like how many people will sell themselves short despite having so much.
Were there days where you didn't feel like coming in
to train? Oh yeah. But like for me, it's like,
what helped you get through it?
I don't have those days. Like I'm like, it's weird. Like I'm like I wake up and I'm like, what time? It's like 11:30. 11:30 is when I get in my car. I gotta be in the car. I gotta be turning that thing at 11:30. It's like, because I don't miss warm ups. Like I'm really weird. Like example, Saturday, because of work, I had to be late to class, and I was like, it's okay. Like Crane's gonna like not say anything because I'm always on time. Like if you're always on time, you can get away with it every once in a while. But like if you're always like 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, I think you're missing class. And like for me, it's like every part of class is important, from when you line up to when you're given the permission to leave. You know what I mean? Like despite all these years doing martial arts, I still look at it as like a privilege, not a right. Like I'm really, really, really into like martial arts and like art in general, and you know, and spaces like this that give it like its rightful place. Like there's so many gyms that are opening up all over town and whatnot, especially in my neck of the woods in East LA. But like for me, it's like I'm always down to make the drive because it's worth it to me, like to be like in a place where like the environment is already set up. So that's what to me like makes it like worth it to come out. Because for me, it's never like not worth it. Like, and I love to lift weights now, so I like stay behind. Like the facilities that we have here for lifting weights are just like top notch. Yep.
Cool, man. Yeah.
I don't even like going to open mats anymore. I used to be like addicted to open mats, but it's like, dude, it's like, it sounds weird, like, but I feel like you spoiled us. Like, I go to other places now and I'm like, where's the shower? And they have the shower and I'm like, okay, like, you guys don't even have like a variety of soaps, bro. You know what I mean? And then I get out, I'm like, this is your locker room? Like, it's just like, we're spoiled. You know what I mean? Like, where's the water fountain? Like, you guys only have one bathroom? Like, dude, we're dead spoiled. Like, and we have someone clean, like the mats are impeccable. Like, you just get spoiled. Like, I'm down for the drive because it's worth it. Like, to not have to like worry about like,
the friends mat. Too, right? The friendships.
Oh yeah.
The
people that I've been
able
to.
It's a lot of years, right? You know that together.
Yeah, and just being able to still see Joey on a regular basis. Fucking Joey. I love Joey to death. And then also, like, I tell people, anyone who'll listen to me, like the people that we have coming through on a regular basis, like that quality of people, like when Alexandre Mascarenhas comes through, like that quality of technique, or like when Sururu comes through when you teach class, like or when Professor Iraqli comes through and teaches class, like we have like people who visit on a regular basis that are like visiting professors, visiting staff, and it's like we have access to like lots and lots of information. And then because we are a well-established gym, like me as a black belt, I'm like, oh, it's so cool. We have so many visiting black belts coming through, so many visiting brown and purple belts coming through that take it seriously. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when you have people that like are traveling through, they want to bring their best game and they want to take something too. So they're like paying attention. They're like 100% on the mat. So that's I studied to be a teacher, so like education to me is really important. Like my major was English in preparation for the single subject teaching credential. Like I did like all the observation hours and like I like tutored and shit.
So you thought you were going to be a teacher?
Yeah, kids hate me. I make them cry. It was no go. It was fucking awful. It was horrible, man. It was so bad.
But you went to the...
Like, I would turn off my motorcycle and I could hear the kid crying. Like, they recognized my motorcycle and they were crying. They were like, oh, the evil man who comes and makes me want to count. You know what I mean? Like, oh, God, those kids hated me.
So tell me about... tell me how... I mean, do you enjoy, like... obviously, you enjoy what you do. You've been doing it for quite a few years, you know?
At work?
Mm-hmm.
I have a new job now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm about to finish my 2 years of traineeism or whatever, or of being a trainee. But it's cool. I'm a social worker now. I'm a social worker for IHSS. I enjoy it, but it's like really difficult. It's funny because I was like, oh, the cool thing about it's so funny. I was like, oh, the cool thing about this job is like I don't have to deal with kids.
ISHS?
Like in-home supportive services.
Gotcha.
So basically, like people who like aren't able to take care of themselves independently within their own homes. Like I assess them and their needs and award hours based on their needs, and then other people like provide. There are so many recipients in California. Someone listening knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's what I do now. It's cool. It's really humbling. It's really humbling.
That's that kind of work, you know, because similar work, right? I mean,
disabled people.
You're talking about Skid Row.
Yeah, well, Skid Row is different. Skid Row is I mean,
that was a whole other.
I don't want to get like on PC, but I mean the word. I mean, there's choices and stuff that. But when you meet like I feel like I'm in a way better place now because it's like there's no choices involved. Like people like. And it makes you so humble. For me, it's so humbling to like see. Like I'll complain because I'm like, oh, my left shoulder is fucked up. But then when you meet people who are like, oh wow, like this guy like needs like assisted breathing devices, or this guy's got to go to dialysis because his kidneys don't do this or this that. Like it makes you so appreciative of your health that like it's crazy because like I've listened to your podcast, of course. I listen to a lot of podcasts, by the way, and radio. And I do a podcast, Thirsty Thursdays, presented by the Dollar Boys. Yeah. Well, we're not on any like Spotify or anything. You have to go to the website. We do this magazine called Razor Cake.
Okay.
And the website's razorcake.org. And we do this podcast for it. We've been doing it for like 10 years.
Oh, wow.
It's all like punk rock stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. This guy is one of the guys from this magazine. That's how I know him. And he's a black belt in judo out of the Tenri Judo Association. Yeah, they're actually located in East LA. They have a really tight, it's a wonderful dojo right there. It's like straight from Japan. It's still run by the Japanese.
Wow.
It's really interesting. But what the hell was I talking about? I don't even know.
You did a podcast and...
right. Yeah, about health. So like the way you always talk about like taking into account your health, taking into account your body, like realizing like how your mind is like so linked to your physical well-being, and your well-being is so like linked to like everything, you know? Moving out to LA, working for the Department of Mental Health, you realize like, holy shit, like does the mind rule the body or does the body rule the mind? I don't know, like Morrissey said, you know? And then from there I went like to financial poverty, working for DPSS, and then from there I went to like physical poverty, working at IHSS, like where you meet people who like, you know, they're fine. They got a nice house in Rancho Palos Verdes, you know, they can't walk outside, they can't wipe their ass, like, you know, how fine are you? Like, so it's like, I feel really like humbled to be able to see like so many aspects of poverty, and like it's like insightful. It's I like to help, but it's also like insightful for myself to see like where my own weaknesses are and where I need to be like more appreciative. You know what I mean? Like if you're spending too many nights complaining to yourself because you got a bronze medal, like you're losing a little perspective, you know? But yeah, that's what I do.
That's it, right? Like just being able to compete.
Yeah.
Being able to do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. And I really like to compete. Like I've really like to compete. That's what I like to do. So I'm so excited to like I haven't done it yet, but I'm so excited because I've always told myself it doesn't count yet. It doesn't count yet. It doesn't count yet. It doesn't count yet. Like black belt champion is the champion because that you're like the best of the best. You know what I mean? Like you show up as a white belt and I was like, oh, it doesn't matter. But I mean, of course, and like looking back, I'm like, oh, you're such an idiot. It mattered. You know what I mean? But like it felt so cool. It's like,
what
now I want blue.
What are some of the lessons, right? Like you're saying these different aspects, right? So what are some of the lessons besides, you know, like, being more appreciative, right, of just the opportunities that you maybe take for granted, right? The fact that you're able to just compete and, you know, win a medal, you know? What are some other things that give you perspective, that have given you perspective?
Well, for me, things that give me perspective is like also kind of like where I come from, like in TJ. Like one thing that you'll notice is that there's a lot of really, really, really talented people that are really good at martial arts. And also like even in East LA, I saw it at Brian's school. Like people are like, oh, why do you drive all the way out there? Why do you drive all the way out there? And I'm like, I'll be rude because, you know, because people got money. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, like when you have more time and more financial resources, and less stress. You have more time to focus on things like martial arts and stuff, and that comes through in your performances, and that's where I want to be, because being from where I'm from, like being in teaching, having seen so many kids that were like, man, this guy could kick the shit out of me, but he has to stop training because he can't even pay his fees, or like, this guy has to stop training because he's got to go to work for his family. Exactly. And in East LA, that's such a thing. Like, I had 2 or 3 students that were so good. I was like, oh man, these guys are really fucking good. And then, you know, Brian's school closed, and I ran into them at the grocery store, and I was totally like, hey dude, like, we'll meet at the park however many days a week you want. I will train you for free. Like, you can have gis for me. Like, dude, like, you can't stop. And he's like, no, like, I got to focus on this for my family. Like, that's like a complete waste of time. And it's like from a financial perspective, it's like, yes, you are correct. I mean, at blue belt, you know what I mean? But so like, just the fact that I'm able to be out here and you know, like, have a steady job and be in a steady position, and I'm really able to have someone in my life that allows me to do this. You know, like, my wife doesn't do jiu-jitsu, but she lets me do jiu-jitsu, which is really cool. Yeah, she never gives me a hard time. Like, she's gone to tournaments with me, and like, she like supports me. And when I used to cut weight, she would like support me, not by actually cutting weight with me, but, you know, like, she would emotionally support. Yeah,
sensitive of what she's drinking and eating in front of you.
No. but she would support
in other ways.
Yeah, like, you know, like, but no, she was always like, dude, that's your fucking problem. Like, dude,
this is good.
Yeah, 100%.
You hear the crunching.
Yeah, she's like, no, you're gonna go get me tacos. Like, you're not eating is on you. No, my wife doesn't give a shit. That bakery across the street, that's like my tax for fucking coming out here every day. Like,
Martino's.
Yeah, so like holidays, I'm like, they're closed. I couldn't go. But yeah, I really like being out here, and I really like now that I'm a black belt, like, having the opportunity to make a run at it, to see if I can enter, you know, the ranks of guys like you and like Sururu and like Shandi, like guys who have like what I call the medals that count. You know, the black belt medals, like. Because I did really well at white belt, I did really well at blue belt, I did really well at purple belt, brown belt, whatever. And so now I'm like, dude, like, this is the one where it's like, so many people do so well, and then you get to black belt, and it's like jumping off a cliff as far as talent. It's like, dude.
The beautiful thing with black belt is it's going to be, unless you start, you know, when you're 80 or 90 years old, you know, it's the belt that you stay in the longest.
Right.
So the beautiful thing about the black belt is that hopefully the journey never ends.
Yeah. I have a lot of tries. I'm like, I can try at World Masters over and over and over.
You know, like, not to sound like cliche and all that, right? But like, it's about the journey, right? But the journey, it is, you know, because you want to stay healthy, you want to be with your friends, you want to be doing things that are good for you. And stay connected to that, right?
100%. I recently had someone,
and win a world championship or something, or win a big gold medal. That matters, right?
Yeah. I want to win like either like Masters Worlds or like a European.
Your family can brag about,
or like a Mexico City Open, something like that. I really like competing in Mexico whenever I get a chance. I'm gonna go out next week, and I'm gonna train out there at a place I've never been in, Sinaloa, a place called Roll BJJ. There's this guy who does like video content. He films all the major tournaments in TJ. His the name of his whatever, it's called Puras Broncas. Like, that's like, he like makes like all like the highlight reels and all that stuff, like for like the brands out there. So I'm excited about going out there. I got to go out to Nayarit and train at a place called Sayulita. Every time I go to Mexico City, I say I'm going to train, and then I'm just like glad I made it out of there alive. Between the elevation and the air quality, I'm just last thing I want to do is be like, how could I be more short of breath?
I went to
how could I feel shittier?
It's a tactic thing, and the guy, they invited me to this camp, you know, and I was being cool, and then they invited me to train, and oh man, like I was tired from the trip, you know, and from working, and then I wasn't expecting the altitude, and it hit me like
yeah. You know what happened to me? I trained in Zacatecas with this guy called El Gato Baltazar, this other guy named Teco, who's a UFC fighter. El Teco Quiñones introduced me to him, and my brother-in-law lives in Zacatecas, so I went out there to train with him at this place called La Familia. And man, they just ragdolled me. But I was just like, dude, I just couldn't get my wind.
Couldn't breathe.
I just couldn't get my wind. I was just like.
I used to live in New Mexico, and the altitude was high. And when we live in sea level here, right?
Right.
But it was nice when people would come and visit, right? Because they can't breathe usually. Yeah. And it was also good for me, like, because then I would go down to sea level, and I would always feel like strong, right?
Yeah, I remember when I first started training here, I went like, not off the deep end, but I went deep enough off the end, like looking up all your like MMA accomplishments as well. And I was like, so like.
You did some fights as well, right?
I did 3. Very unsuccessful.
In Tijuana?
In Tijuana, yeah.
Like NHB Valtudo, or
it was like they call them like pancration fights.
Okay.
It was basically like an MMA fight, but you weren't allowed to punch each other in the face. It's amazing how many bruises you have in your face. You're like, man, for a fight where I wasn't supposed to get punched in the face, something happened.
It was in a cage and stuff.
Yeah, one of them was a goddamn rectangle.
A
rectangular cage on the beach, on the boardwalk in Playas. This guy by the name of Mike Villegas, he's currently on the roster for Lux Fight League, LUX. He's a nice guy. But anyway, he was supposed to fight the championship fight for that one, and like, so that's the one that didn't happen.
So literally you get stuck in the corner.
Exactly. So it was like this, and you could get stuck in the corner, and it's like elevated like that, and they're like, I don't know what you call it, like a sandstorm or whatever broke out, and like the carps and everything like went flying everywhere, like rain broke out. My buddy Christian was fighting, and like, it was just such
was it covered?
No,
okay.
It was just like, so I didn't fight on that one, but I always remember that one. Just like,
it reminds me of a King of the Cage of Dean Lister and some other ones. They had
Wet
some
and Wild events.
Wet and Wild, yeah, that was one, yeah. And so it was like a slip and slide, pretty much. It started raining, and
I'm a big collector of like stuff. I used to be anyway.
And you watched like Wet and Wild, King of the Cage.
Yeah, like in TJ, there's like swap meets, like open air swap meets, really big. And of course, I found like that thing that's like that thick and has like every King of the Cage event ever for like 100 pesos. And I watched some. I was like, dude, some of these are just insane. Yeah, Dean Lister's a really interesting character. Yeah, TJ. I actually have like like the Dean Lister logo, like that triangle thing with like little arrows. Right. I actually have that tattoo because that's like the Entram tattoo. Yeah. It's that place meant a lot to me. Like I don't go there as much as I used to. I used to like go like at least once a month or whatever. Because like little by little, it just becomes more like.
Well, you have a family.
Yeah, it comes from like, oh, Renee left last week to Renee left last month to Renee left last year. So it's just like out of a group of 20 guys, like the guys that are like, oh, Renee's back. Like it's smaller and smaller. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
because you have a group that train with you in Tijuana.
I'm like my friends from the gym. Like I still have friends at the gym, but like. It's less and less dudes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the guys from my era, I guess you can say. Like, even like the MMA fighters from my era are a different, like, generation. Like, guys like Mowgli Benitez, who recently fought for UFC, or like Antonio Duarte, or Akbar Areola. Like, that was like the generation before, this generation. Like, for example, like the very first UWC event I went to, I believe, was like Brandon's second fight.
Wow.
Like, that's how long I've known Brandon.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, like, we're buddies, like, hey, but we're not like, hey, Rene, Brandon, how are you today? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I haven't seen him, like, in such a long time. The last time I even had any chat with him was, like, 3 or 4 years ago. But he's always a solid dude. I mean, we're guys from TJ, so if we see you and if we ever knew you, it'll be like I just saw you.
Man, like, when I went to my friend Scotty on the mat, right? The Chipsa Hospital, he offered me this the stem cells and stuff. So I went, and he drove me across the border, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say, but it was the first time driving across the border, and it was so easy. I was like, "What? We're here already?"
Yeah,
right in Playa del Tijuana.
Right.
And then I mean, just the whole scene in Tijuana. I got to hang out with Raúl. And his gym,
right? Oh, you guys ate at Caesar's too, right?
Yeah.
Dude,
the history of Tijuana. The Caesar salad.
Yeah, the original is the place where they invented the Caesar salad. Yeah, that place is world famous. Their food is so amazing.
And I told that to some chefs and stuff. They're like, really?
Oh yeah. Google it, bro. Yeah, the food in TJ is amazing.
Yeah. God. Just because you think of you hear the name Tijuana and like people kind of make fun.
It's amazing how much goes on there, especially now more than ever. Like, I don't know if you noticed, like all those crazy high rises everywhere.
Yeah. Well, he was showing me. He was so prideful of Tijuana, and he was like, man, all these people are moving here, and all these high rises.
I'm nervous about it, but I'm also it's also very exciting.
Yeah, and then just I took my mom there to get stem cells, and she's like, are we in Mexico yet? You know, because it was just like this.
Oh yeah, it's super chill, but it's like. It's an interesting place. It's
for sure. If you're in the wrong place, kind of like Sururu stayed there, and he's like, man, I don't. After nighttime, I stay inside. I don't go out. Yeah. I make a left. I don't make a right.
Right. Yeah. It's and there's also like certain neighborhoods. It's also complicated.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no safe space in TJ. Like it just is what it is. You know what I mean? Like.
But it's not as like people watch the cartel. Movies, and they think that people are, it can be, right? But,
yeah, it can be.
But overall, I say overall, but
yeah, I always tell my thing to people always is like when people are like, oh, like should I be worried? I'm like, dude, like with all due respect, like nobody knows or cares who you are. You know what I mean? But my whole thing is like, for example, like if I got to drive like a fancy car or whatever down, I was like, oh man, fuck, dude. Like if I get like in a car accident, there's no such thing as like car insurance, and it's all just like a big pain in the ass. Like it's a different vibe. Like shit can get real quick, but I like it. I grew up there, but it's weird. Speaking of perspective, like now that I have a son, like when I go home and I'm like, hey, I want to take my kid for a walk. It's like I can't take my kid for a walk. Like, and I mean like in a literal sense, like the sidewalks. I don't know if you ever noticed, like the sidewalks don't match up and shit, and like there's all these huge holes everywhere. It's like it's physically impossible to take your kid for a walk. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like if you have a stroller, it's like good fucking luck making it to the corner,
depends on the streets, on the sidewalks.
Yeah, like people tell me like, oh, like I grew up in a favela, and I'm like, yeah, I grew up in a fucking colonia postal. Like so what? Like it's all the same. Yeah, but it's an interesting place because there's so much money that goes through there. There's so much money in TJ. There's so much culture in TJ, but there's also so much poverty in TJ. Yeah, so much violence in TJ.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
They were telling me, I was looking it up. I was doing some Googling and all that when I went to the Caesar salad, because the Caesar's, what's it called? Caesar's restaurant or whatever.
Yeah, Caesar's restaurant.
And it was really popular during Prohibition.
Oh yeah.
It was like the Vegas in a way.
Yeah, like in that's like one of the last layovers of that era of TJ, which is like when it was exactly like Vegas, and everyone from San Diego and LA would drive over there. Right? They had like races. It's still there. Like it's really quite popular. The caliente, like the horse tracks and all that stuff. My wife's Nana is quite a gambler, so she would take her to the track like 3 times a week to gamble on horses, and she would like give her money, and she'd be like, you have to gamble with this money. And if my wife would be like, oh, I'm just going to hold it. She'd be like, no, we don't do that. This is for gambling. Like, yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about. Like, it's very big. It's still really popular. Like, it's amazing how many, like, people from San Diego still go.
Expats, right? Like,
yeah, people from San Diego still prefer to go to TJ to gamble when they can still go to the casinos. You know what I mean? Even with COVID and stuff. A lot of gambling. You know who likes the Jorge and I stopped at
Professor George.
Yeah, Professor George and I stopped at one of the calientes on Revolution on the way there. I don't even know how to play. I'm like that guy. I'm like, I don't even know what the hell is going on, but he knew exactly what he was doing, and the ball and the numbers and the.
They're saying like Scotty on the mat, the Chipsa Hospital, because people were scared to go over across the border, but the border never closed for one day.
Yeah, that border is like the amount of
people
when people talk about like the amount of money that comes through like that Canada Detroit bridge or whatever 4 days. I'm like, dude, they won't close the TJ border for 4 hours. Like the amount, it's the busiest border crossing in the world.
In the world, yeah.
Like bar none, like. Yeah, so it's definitely
by foot, by car,
and I've done it all. Like I've crossed by foot, by car, on those little buses that will like rent, like it's for $1.50 to take you right across. On a motorcycle, on my bicycle, every which way. Pre 9/11, post 9/11.
What about swimming?
Never, no. But I did meet a couple who did. Like they were like a couple of like really athletic like Brazilians.
Yeah.
When I worked at the mall, and they just told us about it. Like, and they like went down there, had a great time, and realized they forgot their passports, and they just swam back across. But I mean, the amount of people who are like physically capable of doing that, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
yeah, because people were, Sudu was telling me he met some guys that they trained to, you know, be in enough shape to swim across.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't doubt that. I mean, I don't remember, but I remember being younger and hearing about like before they put like those poles into the sand that people
right.
Like,
so what's the deal with that? Like it only goes so deep.
And before it went even less deep into the ocean, so it was easier to get around. Yeah.
And so you swim across those poles,
and you're on the other side.
Okay.
And now there's like that kind of like no man's land of the guys on the quads and stuff. But back in the day, it was just like beach, so it's just a lot harder to tell. I mean, that border is. It's been so wild to watch it transition.
These last few years, right?
Yeah, I mean, because I've been crossing that border since I was a child.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I think the first time I was in INS detention, I was like 5 or 6 years old. Yeah, I remember being like 5 or 6 years old the first time I was in INS detention. And I didn't even live in Mexico. Like I lived in like the United States. Like we like went to a pickup spot in San Isidro to pick up a family member, and as we were picking up a family member, the spot got raided, like just like on TV, like with like, you know, and everyone got taken to jail. And I was 5. It was awesome. I mean,
the spot was raided in Mexico?
No, in San Isidro.
Oh, okay.
Like we went to pick up, you know, grandma, and then right when she crossed, and it was like back in the day, like they came running down a little piece of the hillside because they snuck across the sheet metal. And then, but the INS knew about it somehow or something, and they rolled up into that little parking lot and scooped everyone up.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been in INS detention multiple times, like throughout my life.
And then, I mean, like now it seems like
I'm an American citizen.
Yeah, Sudu was, you know, he flew. We did everything legitimate, right? We, you know, he quarantined during COVID, right? 2 weeks in Tijuana and all that. And then the thing is, I thought there's a reason I had him go to Tijuana, which ended up being a blessing in disguise because we met Raúl. I got to know Raúl and all that. But the fact that I couldn't drive him back over the border.
He had to fly across.
Yes, and there's no flights from Tijuana to San Diego or to LA.
And that's when you start. And that's
why.
Why? Money. It's money. It's the whole thing has always been money. Like I mean, from so many weird things. From the Mexican side of that international, from my personal perspective, thing never made any sense, and it's been such a bummer to like just watch people be like, oh, well, that's fine. I'll just fly to Guadalajara, and then from Guadalajara, I'll fly to LA. If you can afford it, it's like whatever, you know what I mean? But if you can't, you can't walk across. So it's just like they don't have any more or less COVID than you do. Like if you want to look at it from like but if you want to make the argument that like the science. If you want to make the argument that the logic behind the policy that was put forth at the international San Isidro border is science, then I'm an English major and I can be like, dude, I can cut through that like in 10 minutes just because it never made any sense. Never made any the amount of like they had like this crazy like music festivals in Rosarito. We had like 25,000 people from San Diego come across at the same time, but no one else could. But we couldn't come this way. It's like, dude, I don't think germs work that way. Like, I'm not a scientist, but yeah, it's always been bullshit. But yeah, money is welcome to come
because you mean people flew with Sururu from Brazil, right, to Mexico. And they were just going to cross the border illegally. They were just going to walk across.
Oh yeah, what people don't realize is that like there's people from all over the world that go to TJ across the border illegally. You meet people from all over the world. Yeah, I mean it's an increasingly less porous entry, but it's always a very popular way to get across the border, especially for people that have money. That like. Yeah.
People that have money?
Yeah. Like, to go through, like, the actual border.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, cross through the desert or, like, swim or, like... I mean, go through with, like, fake documents and things like that.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Like, in a car with air conditioning.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's rich illegal aliens, but they just don't... But they have to, like, pay to get, like...
Crazy, huh?
Yeah. I mean,
are you a Mexican citizen?
No, I'm an American citizen. I was born in LA.
But can you get Mexican citizenship as well?
I sure hope so. I'm going to try. I'm like in the process. By in the process, I mean swearing to my wife that I'm going to start the process.
Because then, the U.S. is the best passport in Mexico.
Yeah, I'm buying a piece of property, but you can't own it unless you're a Mexican citizen. So I got to become a Mexican citizen so I can do all the proper registration stuff.
How hard is it to become a Mexican citizen?
From what I hear, very easily, especially with my argument. Everyone in my family is Mexican except for me. I mean, I guess my whole generation. But yeah, my sister's done it, and it was really easy. The Mexican embassy apparently is very easy to work with out here in LA. Yeah. Same thing. Rich people that are like, you know what, I'm over this embassy shit. Like they'll literally be like, you know what, I'm flying to LA. And they'll fly to LA and they'll come to our embassy and do their like Mexican embassy stuff because like there's less people. It's just, money.
And how many, what do you call it? If you're Mexican, like US, you can almost go everywhere, right? Almost. But Mexico, like where is it restricted if you're a Mexican citizen?
In terms of like where you can buy or where
you can travel to.
Oh, Mexico doesn't have any travel restrictions of any sort.
But to like, for example, can you go to Europe, EU?
Oh, you can go anywhere. Like, yeah.
You need like a visa to come to the US, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's like, Europe doesn't ask for anything
from Mexico.
Yeah, like because I remember we've had a lot of friends that go to Europe with their Mexican passports, and it's not an issue. My wife and I, when we went to Europe, I believe she already had an American passport. I'm not sure. No, because I think she was like a resident and she still had her, I don't know. But yeah, your Mexican passport will get you to Europe, no problem. And England too. It's just us.
Are they doing a lot of the vaccination things there as well?
I don't know. Oh, in Mexico?
I'm sure it depends.
In terms of like restriction or like, I don't know. I really don't know, but it's definitely a shit show. Like, I mean, but it's a shit show everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's so interesting. Like, I guess like my mother-in-law got like a vaccination, but like they didn't give her the card, and it was like a whole bureaucratic nightmare to get the actual card. Like 3 months after,
she's got to get more vaccination.
Well, that's another thing.
Go through it again.
That's another thing. I know people because the United States is only honoring certain vaccines, right? And there's certain vaccines that they're not.
Like from Russia, right? You
Precisely. There are vaccines that they are not honoring that were given to the Mexican government free of charge. And then they gave them to the people of the Mexican northern regions, aka Tijuana. And now they have this vaccination. Here I am at the border. Hey, I'm being a good global citizen. I got my experimental vaccine. Here's proof. And like, oh, you got the wrong one. We're not, you know what I mean? And I know of people who were like, okay, well, I'll just get another one. And I'm like, man, I mean, everyone's free to do their own thing, but it's interesting. But there's definitely that person out there who had to get another vaccine to get the right vaccine.
Man, tell me about your podcast. You got all these.
We basically just play punk music. It's been like 10 years.
You play punk music?
Funny story. The guys that I do the podcast.
You've been doing it for how long?
Like 10 years.
10 years, wow.
Yeah. It feels that way. You know what? Let's make it 8. Let's make it 8 years. We used to be on this radio station, 1630 AM, K-Chung in Chinatown.
K-Chung.
Yeah. And then this magazine, who a really good buddy of mine helps make, started doing like uploading podcasts and stuff, and we got a grant and all this stuff. And they're like, dude, well, let's just like take it over there. And that's what we've been doing now for quite a few years. We got a little spot like this, like it's in a shed in the back, soundproof, and got like computers, all that stuff. Yeah, we just get together like once a month and we do it. It's fun.
For 8 to 10 years.
Yeah,
wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
And who do you guys talk to? What do you?
We'll occasionally have guests like from bands that we like or stuff like that, or just other people that we know that are into that kind of music, and we'll play records. Like
that's cool. Old school.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like a lot of those bands still put out like vinyl records. And like, we collect them and stuff like that. So it's like 4 or 5 of us, like a rotating group. And so the same thing, like it's old school DJ stuff. Like I want to show up and like everyone take like 2 or 3 records they want to play, and we just like play it and talk about it, and that's it, and drink beer. Yeah. And then someone's got to edit it down. Same thing as this. I definitely miss being in the radio. The radio is so much, it's not easier, but it's like finite. Like you show up at 10:30, it starts at 11. They're going to kick you out of there by midnight, and no matter what, you're done. Podcast, it can go on for so long.
Yeah.
So you'll be like, oh my God, we've been talking for 3 hours. Like, holy shit. Like,
I'm not on Joe Rogan's level. I don't know how you can sit down for 3 hours.
Oh, man. I don't know. That whole Joe Rogan thing is so crazy.
It's crazy. He's the voice. He's the mainstream media almost.
It's weird.
In a lot of ways.
It's just so weird. Like, I just don't get what the whole argument is, because I'm really into podcasts. Like, when I say I'm really into podcasts, like, I'm really into podcasts and radio. Like, when I was younger, I was like obsessive about radio. I listened to radio like nonstop. You remember the 90s? Like, radio is...
Yeah.
I feel like people can't fathom what a big deal radio was to people back then.
Yeah, there was a song on there.
Yeah, like,
you got the
requesting
music.
your song, or like getting your shout out and stuff like that. And like, I had older cousins, so like I grew up around like in LA around like the 80s boombox, and like, dude, people were like so loyal to radio stations. It was such a big deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I forgot what I was talking about.
Just how big of a deal like being, the radio was back in the 90s.
So
I mean, even
for me,
2000s.
It's really cool to like be able to like continue to like do podcasts or like be on a podcast. Like, because when I'm at work, like I've been working desk jobs for like a while now. It's like podcasts like a regular part of my day to like keep me going through. So like a lot of like the podcasts that people were like attacking about Joe Rogan, or that people were like coming back at people that I had no repertoire with prior to about Joe Rogan. It's not like, oh, we talk about Joe Rogan because we're both fans. Started saying like shit to me about Joe Rogan, like as like a way to like put me down. And I was like, dude, like it's like a 3-hour episode. Like, A, I listened to that episode. B, like I researched some of it. And it's like, it's so weird how
Which
people
one?
now,
Which one?
like all of them, like the last 3 or 4 prior to him getting in trouble that were just about COVID and whatnot. The one that had like the guy who like developed the COVID vaccine.
Right. Was it Malone or something?
Yeah. And there was that Dr. McCullough one. And it was just interesting to me. It's, I don't know, American culture is in a really interesting place right now. That's all I'll say.
I mean, some of the social media things, right? Like the algorithms and the AI and how they pick it up. And if you ever watched that, what's that? The Netflix show, not show, but documentary.
Oh, everyone talks about that social dilemma.
Social dilemma.
Yeah.
And how, they get you to believe a certain thing. And once you have that belief, then you think a certain way. And then you're willing to, fight for that.
What I find the most...
And then it separates us, right?
Yeah, no, totally. But what I find like the most interesting is to watch like a certain segment of the population that like has always like absorbed certain literature and like certain movies and stuff that like they claim to like take those specific like lessons from. Like, in my opinion, there's no worse ignorance than like willful ignorance. So when you get people that are like well-read and college educated, and like during the last administration we're so goddamn good at like picking up every little thing and critiquing every little thing, and then all of a sudden they're like not willing to critique and not willing to see what's going on to maintain like a specific social like comfort level within like communities and stuff. It's weird. It's weird. It's an interesting thing. You know what I mean? Like, because if you just remember, because I feel like to a certain extent I am removed from it, like culturally, because like I have so many friends that are like, oh, my parents are like staunch Democrats, or my parents are like staunch Republicans. I'm like, my parents are Mexican. Like, we didn't get, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like that's not part of like my identity growing up. So I can kind of see past it a little bit, but it's really interesting to watch like the party that I, as like a first generation Mexican immigrant, was like, oh, the Democratic Party is like this, and then like watch like circumstances change, and then just be like, I don't know if the Democratic Party is like this. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Let's see what happens, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's
see what happens.
Yeah, and that's all you can do.
But the main thing is stick together.
Yeah, like for me, like the whole thing is just to be like, dude, like just like kind of just like stay neutral and like just kind of ride the wave, because like going back to COVID, this gym went one way, other gyms went other ways, you know what I mean? And I was employed at another gym that was going another way, and it was just like, I personally like went on a journey. Like I tell people, I'm like, dude, like I went on a journey. Like when it started, like I was like so crazy about it. Like, I mean, not crazy. I'm not trying to insult anybody, but
we don't know, right?
I was believing everything that came out. I got to the point where I was like, you know what, babe? I'm going to sleep in this room, and you and the baby are going to sleep in the other room, because I had a newborn baby who was born March 1st, 2020. Yeah. And I was like, that's just what we're going to have to do. And slowly be like, you know what, babe? I think this is bullshit. And you know what, babe? I think this is bullshit. And you know what, babe? I'm not wiping down my cereal. Like, it's fine. Like,
wiping down your cereal.
And to the point, and then people now would be like, would you like some, that fucking shit, the gel? Like, and I'll be like, no, thank you. And they'll be like, are you sure? And I'm like, yep. Like, you want something? Like, no, I don't want it. Like I did that. And I did that shit until like my, skin was like cracking and there was like blood coming out from so much alcohol on my hands. I was just like, dude,
absorbing all that in the system.
And I'm just like, dude, I'm over it. Like, and I know people are really anti that phrase, over it or whatever, but like me on a personal level, and when I say I'm over it, I mean like I feel humanity through a lot of pain and sacrifice has reached a point where we can cumulatively act in ways that are quote unquote over it, but it shouldn't be oversimplified to be like, oh, like they're disregarding all the people who passed and whatnot, because we had people pass away in our family as well. And it's just so interesting to see like COVID play out like in Mexico where there's no politics attached to it, and then see it play out here where there's like so much politics attached to it. You're just like, wow, it's so weird. It's
you know, same thing. I just want people to come, not fight, and come together, and you know, that's what I love about jiu-jitsu, because that it's not social distancing. It's the opposite of social distancing. Like I told them, like, it's the opposite of social distancing. It's that human connection, right? Yeah. And I think if we have that, not social media, but jiu-jitsu, human connection, and you're happier, you're healthier, you're stronger because of it. Yeah.
It's like, I feel like it's so funny, like, you'll hear things that are like, I mean, I read a lot of magazines and stuff, and like you'll like in read National Geographic, like, oh, science has like finally proven like humans give off like electromagnetic frequencies that other humans can read, and I'm like, you mean like good energy, bad energy, like bad vibes, good vibes? I'm like, yeah, like if you're into martial arts, you're like, yeah, like. It's not bullshit. Like it's like Bruce Springsteen says, you know, all you need is a little human touch and like the power of prayer, and it's weird because I come from a like socially, like in my social group, I come from a very like non-religious group of people, like in punk rock. But like in my personal life, like I've personally in the last few years become like in my personal life religious. But yeah, like the power of prayer, like the power of community, like seeing people on a regular basis and just being like, hey bro, how you doing? Hey bro, how you doing? Hey bro, checking in on people. You know what I mean? Like jiu-jitsu is like
laughing.
Yeah. It really is a gift that we can give to each other, and we need each other to have it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like what you said, like what keeps you going? Like nothing. Like just like knowing that this environment is going to be here. Like I'm down to come and do the traffic, and it's like. And it's all like for me, like when I look at my checking account, I'm like, when I see that X amount of bucks come out, I'm like, sweet. Like, you know what I mean? Cause you're keeping the party going. It's like when you pay for your union, you pay for your union, and so many times, don't even get me into that. But like, I'm a big union guy. Hey, in dubious battle, John Steinbeck, don't get me wrong. SEIU right here. But anyway, it's like, this is like, you're paying into something and you're like, this is our clubhouse, dude. Yeah. Like, and especially through what happened with COVID, it's like, you were here for us. Yeah. Like you were here for us when a lot of people that were supposed to be there for us weren't there for us. Yeah. And you gave us a space to be there for each other. You know what I mean? And a lot of us here like have different opinions and stuff. And it's been really interesting for me to watch the people that like had my opinions, like a lot of people that had my opinions, like just decide to go their own way, and to like see how some of us were like, well, you know what? Like at the end of the day, like my loyalty is like to people. Like my loyalty is like to each other, you know what I mean? Like, and we're doing the best that we can to keep each other as safe as we can. Like, what else can we do? You know what I mean? We love each other. We still want to see each other. We still want to be around each other, and we should. And to think that in America, someone would that day would come when someone would be like, no, you can't be around each other. You're like, I don't know. But it's an interesting place. It's an interesting time and place. But I really do thank you so much for inviting me, Professor, because it's an honor to have been a part of your team. It's an honor to represent your team, because it means so much when people ask you like, oh, who do you train with, or who do you da-da-da-da-da, you know what I mean? Like you say like, oh, I'm with Alberto Crane, like that like means something to so many people, you know what I mean?
Thank you, man. Honor's mine, really. It's an honor to have seen you grow and improve year after year. and continue to grow.
Yeah,
it's really, man, I live for this, you know, I live for this, and it makes me so happy. So thank you for giving me that.
It's so crazy to see that there's a new generation coming now too. You know what I mean? Like
always.
It's like real talk.
Doesn't stop.
On the most real shit, like watching you guys be dads made me want to be a dad. You know what I mean? Like, and now your kids are competing, and now I have a kid, and it's like, holy shit, like, I've been in LA almost 10 years, I'm a black belt, we got a new generation coming up, like, you know, from me being, like, at the very first Jiu-Jitsu World League event, and now your kids, you're going to Florida to, like, to have your kids compete for Jiu-Jitsu World League, like, it's just crazy, like, time keeps going, like.
Keeps going, yeah.
So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing a slice of time with me, and for letting me share a slice of time with your listeners.
Thank you.